and live your life today. It doesn't matter what they say.
Hello, and welcome to another episode on Red Lotus Life. I'm Lori Kinsey, Advanced Spiral Practitioner.
And I am Sara Elizabeth, Spiral Practitioner.
Yeah, and we are just in the middle of this embodiment workshop. I love how everything, as always, we talk about it, right? How everything just seems to stack and compound as we integrate. Just a quick recap on the embodiment clear. You can go and check that out. It's free for a limited time. As soon as we wrap up integration here, we're going to be pulling it off the YouTube channel. So go check it out while you can. But we had, let's see. So with the embodiment clear, sympathy was the emotional block, which means in resonance with, and it was in the area of family love. So if you'd like to learn more about that, just go check out all the other videos that we have in this playlist and in the series. We decided to introduce somatics into this part of the integration because somatics and embodiment is so huge with everything that we do here. Coming back into the body, connecting the body, and then now also that can be overwhelming. That's what we've been, all the feedback. We know this as we work with our clients, that it can be overwhelming and overpowering to now be connected with the body. And so that's why we brought in somatics. And now the last couple of weeks, we introduced two channels already, the mental and imagination channel.
Mm-hmm.
And now today we're going to be talking about the posture channel, which is actually one of my favorites. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking about the posture channel as compared to the imagination channel. I was like, which one really is my favorite? Because I really love both of these. And it really, today as I was kind of dropping in, it brought up some memories about my grandfather, actually. So again, coming back to family love, I've always been really aware of my posture because growing up, my grandfather was a stickler about posture. And literally, if he saw me slumping, he would come and poke me in the back and say, stand up straight. So it's always been in my awareness. But it's always fascinating to me how the posture is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. And so our bodies are so good at telling a story about what's actually happening within the body, within the unconscious mind, and within the nervous system. So this is super fun to introduce.
Yeah, I'm excited. My grandfather used to do the same thing. I wonder if that's like a grandpa thing. And that was another thing too. How I feel like everyone always says, put your shoulders back, right? Put your shoulders back. But what I've noticed is when he would touch in between, like on the back, then that actually would push the spine forward. Instead of just like shoulders back, it would push my spine forward, which if you relate it to what we talk about, it's like our heart chakra, right? Our heart now is in alignment when that happens versus just shoulders back, right? So,
right.
I don't know. I'm just really excited about this one.
Yeah, me too.
So it's somatics, the posture channel.
Yeah. Okay, so the posture channel. The posture is the bridge, as I was just speaking to previously. It's the bridge between our conscious and our unconscious minds. So again, sort of recapping on what I was saying before, our body language tells the story. I love this about the story, about what is happening in the nervous system and the unconscious mind. So what are the different ways that our bodies and our postures can help to tell a story? The posture channel is composed of the body's position or shape, the tone of voice. So we're talking about, like, is it harsh? Is it aggressive? Or are we speaking in a way that's calm and relaxing? Facial expressions and bodily gestures. So, if we're feeling anxiety, are we wringing our hands? One that I've become really aware of is that I will, and this is calming to me, I will rub the fronts of my legs and sort of sway back and forth. And that brings me to a place of alignment, center, and calm. Let's see, as far as facial expressions are concerned, are you typically an animated person? Are you smiling? Are you a person who has a really flat affect? And this one is actually really important to me to share, because if you are a person who has experienced any kind of abuse for a prolonged periods of time, this is something that you start to really, really get good at, as far as sort of masking your facial expressions. You'll start to just have a very flat face with very little smiling, very little response, because we don't want to give away what we're actually feeling. The next one is bodily secretion. So are we sweating? Are we crying? Are we salivating? How are those things showing up for us? So if we're angry, or if we're in a heightened state, then we might all of a sudden just find ourselves really hot, really sweaty, our faces are red, giving away our state. So the next one is bodily sensations, such as trembling or shaking. So especially if you're nervous, you might be trembling. If you're really scared, you might be trembling or shaking. And then any unconscious or conscious bodily expression. It takes a lot of practice, but the more we practice, the more aware and in tuned that we can become. And then from that place, we're able to really use the posture to notice when we're in a state of contraction, or when we're just where there's energy that is charged or stuck or looping.
Mm-hmm. So I love all of this, because this is literally the body communicating with us. And not only is it communicating with us, but it's also communicating with others. So I really enjoyed what you said about, mentioning that if you have been in any kind of abusive situation or something like that, we get really good at masking our facial expressions, right? Like we get really good at kind of just turning it off so that we can be in a safe space, like for safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as we become more connected with our body and we become more in our body, it's not so easy to mask that anymore. So I like that we're actually talking about this, because a lot of times people can really see that, like especially with me, I cannot mask anything now. Like they can literally see it with the expression on my face or the way that I'm holding my body. So it is interesting too. You and I have been talking about this, going advanced into this type of work. I mean, I had somebody read my face the other day who is a practitioner of somatics. And she was able to go so deep by just reading, and this was just in a few seconds, right? I think we spent maybe 5 minutes doing this, because she's an acquaintance of mine. So she said, "Hey, can I just read your face for a second?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And literally just because this side of my eye, like my eyebrow over here, went a little higher than this side, she knew of my internal critic that happens. And that's my perfectionism and my refinement traits that I have, and that inner critic. And she could tell just but if you look, like, I feel like I look at it and my eyebrows are pretty much the same, but you can really go deep into this work and really advanced in this work. So I love that this is being introduced to our Red Lotus Life family.
Yeah, me too. And there's literally a reason why there's a saying that says your face tells it all. Like it says it all.
Mm-hmm.
It truly does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why the posture channel? So the posture channel is the expression of energy as physical interpretation. So the very first thing that came to mind for me was just interpretive dance. I mean, we can tell an entire story just by using the body and never using language at all. And this can also show up again, like, are we expressing anger? Do we have anger, the energy of anger built up in our body? Are we clenching our fists? Are we stomping our feet? Are we moving in an aggressive manner? It can be used consciously to communicate to the unconscious and move stuck looping energy or to create a desired state. So we're going to be kind of visiting this throughout the rest of the conversation. But once we really get good at becoming aware of our body language, of our postures, we can then sit with those postures and really, really sort of dissect what's underneath, what's the underlying emotion, and then, figure out like, where is it stuck? Where is it charged? And begin to move it in a way that actually creates new neural pathways and a desired state of healing. We can also use this in order to create a desired state. So, just for example, if you want to be a person who moves in the world with a certain way, with an air of confidence, then you might practice being a confident person who moves in the world in a way that flows and is graceful. And so the more you practice that, the more you actually do that in your regular day-to-day movements. The next one is combining posture, breath, and movement to speak to the unconscious helps change our chemical and hormonal balance. So as we're able to tap into these either states of contraction or in the desired states that we want, it's really good to combine the posture with the breath and the movement in order to sort of we can use it to bring us to a state of rest and digest, to calm the nervous system. We can even use it to bring us to a more heightened state and just sort of play with that. A really good example of this to me, as far as just actually creating the chemical and hormonal balance, is actually meditation. So typically in meditation, we are sitting in a certain posture, we're upright, the spine is erect, shoulders are relaxed, our feet are grounded, they're on the floor, and we're paying a really close attention to our breath. And typically there's little movement, of course, unless we are doing like a walking meditation or something like that. But typically being in the state of meditation does bring that chemical and hormonal balance. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one.
I love it. Just love everything about this, because I love our dynamic, because you're talking about ecstatic dance and movement and being in mindful place, meditation, things like that. And the way that I really like to use the posture channel with my clients, and these are clients that experience panic attacks and things like that. So I love the posture channel because this is absolutely the quickest way to release energy, right? So if you're in a heightened state, kind of like what you're talking about, if you're in this heightened state and you're in this heightened sympathetic state and you have all of the things going on above what you talked about with the bodily secretions, the sweating, the shaking, all of that, a lot of times my clients would experience that, and then they're running out of a movie theater, or they're leaving a whole cart of groceries in the middle of the store and running home. I mean, just tons of stuff. And it can be triggered by a smell or a person or a memory, or, it can be triggered by just the littlest thing, and then it comes on quick, right? But the posture channel with this is the easiest way to actually release it and move through this by doing the dance, the shaking, the jumping around, going into a bathroom stall and just, freaking out for a second. And then you're able to have that breath, right? So when you're talking about combining the posture, the breath, and the movement to change the chemical and hormonal balance, like this is exactly what happens. So I love that you have that, like you spoke of that example of like a daily practice, because that daily practice that you spoke about is actually going to really help those of you who are in a heightened state, like with the panic attacks and different things. Because yes, you can go in and you can like hurry and do this stuff, and if you're in that heightened state, but then also you can use this practice what Sara Elizabeth used in the long term, right? Like the marathon of life, and being able to actually bring our nervous system down to a regulated state. So I like that because there's two different options there. There's two different examples of how to actually use this in a very productive way.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many ways to use this. So are you ready to move on?
Yeah, my mouse was having an issue there. There you go.
Okay, so here we are going to just begin to tap into the posture channel and learn how we can bring awareness and actually start to move through it. So first, we want to bring attention to the conscious or the unconscious posture. So once we've had a little bit of practice, we might be able to tap into this on our own. So one of the postures that I've noticed myself that is recurring is sort of it's definitely a state of contraction. Everything gets tense, everything feels rigid, and it's a way that my nervous system is sort of in a state of freeze. So we can actually use these to identify fight, flight, or freeze. And then by maintaining and having the awareness of that posture, without actually, like Lori was saying, like we can go and shake it off really quickly if we need to, if it's a moment of panic or something like that. But then coming back to that and having it in your awareness and actually being with the posture and feeling into the emotion, the sensations that are coming up while we're paying attention to the breath, and then really, really move through it with intention. We want to move slowly. We want to be present. And then we can start to tap into the other channels, the imagination, the mental. We can ask questions. We can move through it with logic as well. Or we can just move through it as a way to feel through what's coming up and gradually be able to relax into a self-soothing or comfortable posture that allows us to release whatever the emotion or the charged stuck energy that was there. We can begin to allow to release that. And it also allows us to ground into safety or feel, actually, if we're trying to achieve a desired state, we can actually feel when we've achieved that desired state. So with the example I used earlier, like we actually feel like the confident woman who is walking down the streets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is really cool because just like what you said, it really does start to build upon, right? And we can, when we become more advanced and we start to practice these different channels, once we're in a specific channel, like the posture channel, now we can actually access the other two, like the mental and the imagination channel. This actually happened last night. Last night I was on a call with a friend and it was really cool. He was just working through some things and I said, hey, do you have a second? Let's like, do you want to just drop in and let's just see what's happening here? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So he ends up being able to just drop in like that. And that is something kind of what you talked about, being able to be present, right? So being able to slow things down and to be present. And when I'm talking about dropping in, I'm talking about, just relaxing, closing the eyes, and then connecting to the breath and being able to just drop into the body. And then I always ask people to do a quick body scan. And so that's what he did. He did a quick body scan. He was able to feel something in the throat. And so that's exactly what we did. We got curious about it. Hey, what's in the throat, type thing. Oh, what is this? Turns out it was a trauma imprint, and we were able to be with it. So when you talk about this right here, about maintain posture with awareness, don't shake it off, be with the feeling, emotion, sensation, and then pay attention to breath and move with intention. That's kind of an example of exactly what we did there.
Yeah.
Within 10 minutes, all of a sudden that was cleared. Like he was able to he's like, oh, wow. Yeah. Because a lot of us, I think, can resonate with that and relate to that when we feel that really closed off feeling in our throat, where all of a sudden we feel like we have a frog in our throat and we can't really it feels tight and contracted. And so this is a perfect example of how to actually move that, because I mean, I know myself, before I even knew about this or had these tools, I would have that there for months. Months, my throat would feel really tight. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, there's definitely been periods of time where, because I wasn't used to practicing and I didn't have the awareness, there might be something stuck in my throat, or there might be a pinch in my back, or there might be, there's repetitive postures and facial expressions and things that we do over and over and over again. But until we have the awareness, we don't have the space to be able to come back to it. And especially, I think it's really important to say, sometimes it really is important to have the awareness and come back to it when you are in a place where it's safe to express. And it's also important you don't have to, but I think it's nice to have a safe person to witness, or a safe space to be witnessed in order to move. I really love that in our practice, that's one of the things that we can do, because these postures, generally speaking, unless you've been practicing, they're not conscious to the person who you're witnessing. And so when we can bring awareness to what we are witnessing, then we can say, okay, can you please maintain that posture? And then we can start to move through the different channels in order to come back to a place of safety and come back to, that relaxation, that self-soothing posture, or whatever posture feels comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you said about having that safe place, that safe person. I do feel it's important as well, because whenever we're able to be with someone in that state, we can go deeper, and it's not so surface, because when we're in our own stuff, we're in our own stuff, and it's hard to see, hard to see or go deeper with that. So I think it's really good to have some guidance there with someone else. And also even just the acknowledgement, right? There are a lot of times it's the acknowledgement, external acknowledgement, that helps move things through.
And validation.
So, yeah, and just having that witness, because in this situation, that's not all that was needed, but that was a big part of it.
Yeah,
was just getting curious. And you and I do that all the time with each other. We sit and bounce things off of each other like that. So I think that's why it's really important. I feel like a lot of times, especially in our society over here in the Western world, we only go and have sessions with people or seek out support when there's something that we're obviously working through, right? But honestly, I choose to do this work constantly, and I call it my energetic maintenance, my emotional maintenance. It doesn't matter what modality you're into, if you're into talk therapy, if you're into energy work, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. I do feel it's really important to actually maintain that, because that actually gives you the tools to move through things when challenges or opportunities do arise. So I like that you even talked about that.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, my mouse isn't working again. There we go.
Technology is so fun. Okay, so this is a little exercise that we created for all of you to be able to experiment with, along with any of the other information here. But I thought it would be fun for people just to begin to come into a state of awareness around when certain postures, facial expressions, all of these things are coming up. So the first thing that you would do is notice when you're in a state of contraction, or if you're doing this exercise in order to create a desired state, then you'd want to be really intentional about stating the desired state. But when we're noticing that we're in a state of contraction, You want to actually like stay in that, hold it, maintain it, and find the posture that you can imagine the contraction or state would look like, and hold it. So again, I'm repeating myself. We're going to hold that posture and then begin to ask ourselves some questions. So how do we feel? What's the emotion that's coming up, that's arising, and what sensations are present? So is there tingling? Is there a numbness that we're feeling? Are we trembling? As we maintain that posture, how are we feeling? What are the emotions that are coming up? So then as we're maintaining that posture, then we're going to slowly begin to change positions. It can even be like little tiny micro movements, because as we're moving, if you're watching and doing this with me, then you start to be able to feel even the tiniest places in the body where maybe there's tension, maybe it feels a little bit tight, maybe there's certain areas that feel better than other areas. Maybe you then begin to tap into the imagination channel where maybe you're starting to find a color, or you're starting to, have an emotion that's actually arising that was underneath what was there before. So we're going to move through this process until you have completed and feel like you're ready to just sort of relax. Or you might, come to a place where you're balling up into a ball, like fetal position, or maybe it's just like you're laying down. Maybe it's just like laying down on the floor, just a relaxed, comforting position, whatever that looks like after you've moved through this process. And then check in with yourself. Did tears come? How did you feel? And how do you feel now that you've moved through it?
Yeah, this is powerful. This is a very powerful exercise that I hope anyone who is watching this will actually go and do it often, because to witness this in action is amazing. I can't wait for people to come to the retreat. Maybe we'll do something like this at the retreat. That would be really nice. But it's amazing to watch what happens. I was in a group session one time when I was talking about, I like to do my own energetic maintenance and emotional maintenance and all of that. And so I was in a group session one time and we were doing this, and it was amazing to see some people get really super tight in that ball, kind of like what you talked about just now, and getting into, because some people will find themselves in that fetal position because that is where we feel the safest. But then as we were moving, and even those micro movements, it can be micro, it can be big movements. It's whatever feels comfortable to you and whatever way the body wants to move. But by the time you're done, I feel like most of us probably are like this in the beginning. And then by the time we're done, it's like you're open, the spine is straight, you're relaxed, the shoulders are down, you're just soft. There's like a softness that ends up happening and an openness as you're able to release that. And so it's kind of, we can even talk about body work, right? In this way of, if people aren't familiar with necessarily this type of work, you can look at how do you feel before going into a massage, and then how do you feel after?
Right.
Because that's somebody else doing that for you instead of you doing the work for self. Somebody else is doing that. So you do feel more relaxed, and you do feel kind of like this moment, right? And your nervous system, this is its natural regulated state. So I love it. Love the posture channel.
Yeah, me too. I've really been, especially since we've been having these conversations, I've really, really been playing with it quite a lot. And it's super fun, especially, this work is so deeply healing, but when we're actually trying to create a desired state, it's super fun as well. Just being able to play again, like I like the confident woman example, just because it's kind of easy to imagine, and you can imagine like how she would walk, what would she words today, what would she be eating, what kind of house would she be living in, like this confident, successful, person who, what kind of work would she be doing? Would she be doing acts of service? You can just really, really, really dig in and almost even use it as a journaling assignment, and then sort of practice acting out through the posture.
Yeah. Are we finished with this part?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is actually, okay. So once we get like past I remember once I got past okay, what are we doing? How are we moving? Like, and then now you get into the play part. That's why people like dancing, right? That's why ecstatic dance is so fun. That's why when you were talking about the confident woman, this whole be, do, have, that's like a whole nother thing that we need to touch on. But be, do, have moments. And, this is where you literally create and manifest and just create this life too. So yeah, you can get super fun with it, especially at diving into the imagination channel, the mental channel, all of that, because I feel like, well, with all these channels, you can actually connect into all of them. So I'm excited whenever we actually get done introducing all the channels, because then we can talk about how you can play and enter and weave them in and out of each other. So
yeah, it is super fun. I'm sorry I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I think that part of it, of the creation part, is so important as well. So,
yeah. And it kind of goes back to when we were working with Geronimo. Geronimo is is a Red Lotus Life mentor. He's actually amazing. And how he always talks about how healing doesn't have to mean suffering. And this is one of those things of, it doesn't have to feel. So I think that's why a lot of people have a lot of resistance, right? And so we can get into the play part of all of this as well. So
yeah. It even kind of crosses over. And again, this is a completely different topic, so we're going to take notes, but it's almost crosses over into archetypal work.
Yep. For sure. I mean, it just goes super deep. We can go in a million directions with it. I can't wait. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone for joining us. We know that your time and energy is important and priceless. So thank you for spending that with us and sharing this time with us. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, because we try to do these every single week. So subscribe so you get the notifications. Like it if this is the type of thing that you want to hear more of or learn more about, so we'll know what kind of content you'd like. And then share it with somebody that you feel that would find value in this, because this really is the way that Sara Elizabeth and I have been able to heal in our healing journey with domestic abuse. So if you're interested in diving deeper into these types of concepts, we invite you to join the Red Lotus Life membership. This is where we go super deep and have the chats and everything else. So the link's below there too, if you'd like to join. I think that's about it.
Oh, we should talk about our human design event that's coming up on August 22nd.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the human design event. Yeah. August 22nd. We were asked to, there's a video that we ended up doing on that if you want to go check it out. But we've been asked to actually do this class on human design and energy types and how they're related to domestic violence and domestic abuse survivors. It's actually really cool if you're into human design, if you have no idea what it's about. It was life-changing for both of us.
Definitely. And it's definitely interesting to dive into it with the context directly related to, abuse survivors.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yeah. It's really good. I'm really excited to start teaching on this one. And I love that we were asked to do it too. So yeah, that's nice. If there's anything that you're interested in learning more about, please just put it in the comments below, and we're happy to take a look and talk about it. So, okay, so till next time. See you later.